A security threat in the air leads to an emergency landing in Portland. The suspect is an Alaska Airlines pilot off duty at the time of the incident. He faces 83 counts of attempted murder. Police say 44-year-old David Emerson tried to shut off the engines on the San Francisco-bound Alaska Airlines plane. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us at 4. I'm Wright Gazaway. Police say Emerson was riding in the plane's jump seat. We begin with Katu's Emily Gersh live for us at PDX. Emily, walk us through what happened on this flight.
Yeah, right. Well, Emerson was a certified pilot for Alaska Airlines when he boarded that flight en route to San Francisco. But he got off the plane here in Portland in handcuffs and escorted by police.
We've got the guy that tried to shut the engines down out of the cockpit. Doesn't sound like he's causing any issue in the back right now. I think he's the dude.
Sound from inside the cockpit shows the horror of what 83 passengers endured on board an Alaska Airlines flight from Everett, Washington to San Francisco Sunday. The FBI and Port of Portland police say 44-year-old pilot Joseph D. Emerson was riding as a passenger in the cockpit of the aircraft when he attempted to disrupt the operation of the engines. He was then taken to the back of the plane while it was diverted to Portland for an emergency landing.
The flight attendant got on the loudspeaker and seemed very frazzled, and she said, "We're having a situation, everyone's safe, but we're going to need to emergency land this plane."
Passenger Aubrey Gavello describes what happened next.
We landed, and then about 10 police officers, armed, came on, walked straight to the back of the plane where I was sitting and detained him and walked the gentleman off the plane. He looked dead in the eyes almost.
Early Monday morning, Emerson was booked into the Multnomah County Jail on 83 charges of attempted murder, the number of people on board, and endangering an airplane. Passengers who took a later flight to San Francisco were stunned to find out he was an off-duty pilot who works for the airline.
This is someone who should not be, obviously, a pilot. But I don't hold the airline accountable.
You trust that the airline is taking care of you and scanning everyone on board, especially people who are authorized to sit in the cockpit of all places.
Now, a spokesperson for Alaska Airlines said pilots are prioritized by seniority to sit in the jump seat of an aircraft, but the captain can deny access. They would not answer further questions about this ongoing investigation. Live in Portland, Emily Gersh, K2 News.
Emily, thank you for that. Our top story now, a Horizon Airlines flight made an emergency landing in Portland yesterday. The airline says an off-duty pilot tried to disrupt the plane's engines while he was in the jump seat. Our team coverage continues with Denise Whitaker live at Payne Field in Everett. Denise, you just heard from a passenger who was on that flight.
I did. The passenger I talked with tells me he does fly regularly for business. He normally goes out of SeaTac on larger jets, but this time, this airport in Everett is so close to his home that he chose to fly out of this airport. And he said it wasn't long into that flight when suddenly he knew they were being diverted and the announcements were being made on that plane. Now, Paul Stephen said he and other passengers were really just looking at each other quite puzzled when they landed and police arrested Joseph Emerson in Portland. Stephen said he didn't know he was an off-duty pilot that had been riding in the jump seat of the cockpit where he unsuccessfully attempted to disrupt the operation of the engine, according to Alaska Airlines. Stephen tells me the flight crew did not tell them such a threat existed on their flight.
Before we got to Portland, the cockpit door opened and someone walked out on their own and went to the back of the plane. He had no idea who it was. Come to find out, we landed, the police came on the plane and arrested that same individual.
Stephen tells me he thought the crew on board did an excellent job up until the moment that they let an aggressor walk past a full flight of passengers. Now, I asked Alaska Airlines specifically about that, and they told me that this is an ongoing investigation, so they cannot comment. Also, very shocking that these passengers, Stephen tells me he and his wife, who was back here in Washington while he was in San Francisco, didn't even know what the threat was on the plane until they woke up this morning and started reading news articles. He said he had two very upset kids at home here on the phone that he had to try to calm down and tell them that Daddy was okay. Stephen plans to be back home in his children's arms tomorrow. Live in Everett, Denise Whitaker, KOMO News.
So disturbing. Denise, thank you for that.